Hey guys, welcome to The Trade, episode 49. My name's Melanie. I'll be your host today. With me is Jim Horwitz of Watson Comics. So thank you for joining us, Jim.
Thanks for having me. That's good to be back. Again.
Yay! Well, we
Yay.
figured we'd do a little bit more of an extensive interview and kind of dig in a bit deeper about what all is the Watson.
I hear you. I love that. Thanks so much. That's great.
All right. Well, my name's Melanie. Like I said, I'll be your single host today. You can find my comics at ornamentalcomic.com. And Jim's you can find at strip.com or on his Facebook page, facebook.com / Watson Comics. Comics?
Watson Comics. Comics, yes.
Plural.
Thank you.
And, all right, well, let's just go ahead and start it off and turn things over to you for a few. What's Watson? What's it all about? And how did you get there?
That's a good question. Watson, the comic strip, I've been fiddling with. I started in 2007, and it's been appearing online since 2010. So we're coming up on 7 years online. It is a strip primarily about the main character, Watson the dog, who is sort of a sensitive watcher of things. He's a chocolate Labrador. And the other main character is a little boy named Fudgy, who lives in Watson's house. They live together. There may be undercurrents that Watson is is Fudgy's parents. He might be standing in for Fudgy's parents. We've never seen them. That is something that might be alluded to. So the back and forth between he's a dog who Fudgy takes care of versus he's the dog who takes care of Fudgy, that's hinted at a little bit. And there are other little children in the neighborhood in which they live called Goodhaven. And the strip is one panel and experiments or has different sorts of jokes as far as sometimes they're relationship things about Watson the little boy. Sometimes it's dog humor about, poop and fire hydrants. Sometimes they're sort of spiritual about the smallness of people in the universe. Sometimes they're growing pain strips about, navigating the trials of childhood and looking for answers. And also there's little sprinklings of technology and what does it mean to be a kid in this day and age where adults seem so busy and sort of off on their own and sort of like big kids themselves. So it's a smattering, but at its heart, I hope it's a strip that people find enjoyable and it resonates in different ways, but hopefully emotionally. I think at its heart, it's sort of a sweet strip. That's my hope.
How has it evolved from what you originally made till now?
Well, early on, I did have the two characters of the boy and the dog. That's a good question. And was just moving in that direction. And I think early on I had this idea that Watson would, wear glasses and be more of a Mr. Peabody type of character. And then it went through different iterations, different sorts of shapes where I experimented a lot with it visually. At first it was a panel. It was just black and white, sort of more newspaper shaped. And then once I realized, hey, this is on the internet, it's not going to be in a newspaper. It got a little taller, and for a while it was sort of monotone, sort of in brown, and then color. And then I did probably about a whole year where it was aged and weathered with coffee stains and looked like it had been ripped apart and scotch taped back together to play with the reader's perception of nostalgia. Sometimes you'd see comics showing through from the backside of the fictional newspaper in which it ran. And, it's still growing. Lately, I've been trying to choose colors I feel good about and use a very limited color palette, and that's sort of running its course as well. So visually, there's that. And then the humor and the characters are evolving as well. And I'm also figuring out where are the boundaries of the strip, what the strip should do and what the strip shouldn't do. So it's definitely growing, but there are probably more poles in the ground now than there were early on. I've tried things that I think don't work. But again, it will, continue to evolve. But it seems like it might be more aware of what it is now than what it was before. I think all strips go through that.
Yeah, they definitely go through different layers of growth, and I mean, and it's just change, and it's all
Yeah.
positive in the long run because you're just figuring things out. I mean, mine, I did it for almost a year there, then I had to take a year off just to do the finances, and I'm back at it now, and I've completely changed. Before I was doing almost entirely digital. Now I've got it 50-50 where I do part of it traditional and just the lettering is digital.
Oh, yeah. I think when things grow like that, it's really interesting, and there's a lot to be said about the creative process and how people come to what they make.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like more like a box of Legos than a puzzle, I think, where, with a puzzle, you're trying to make one picture and all the pieces go in one place. I think with a box of Legos, you can make 100 different things. I think a comic strip is, and maybe movies and books too, where there are many different paths, all of which can be taken. And I suppose the guidebook is, the artist's sensibility. I was thinking about, can I talk about Star Wars?
Of course.
I was thinking about Star Wars and how if George Lucas had made just the first Star Wars and then given the sequel to 5 different directors and said, here, you make the next one, they would have come up with 5 different versions. Some would have said, oh, the politics is really interesting, so we should focus more on that. Some people might have said, Han Solo is the main character, and now in the next one, we can really see how having friends has helped him to become more of the person he wants to be. George Lucas was interested in families, so he said, oh, the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader story, that's the best one. And I think most nerds would agree that it is, but with any strip or creative venture, there's so many threads that are dangling. Which one the creator chooses to follow up on and develop it's completely arbitrary. So sometimes people make different choices, and those are people we hear about. Some people make other choices, and they really love what they do, but it's nothing that resonates as widely. So everyone's on their own path, and everyone's making choices about what they think works. Some people get it right in a way that resonates with a lot of people. Some people get it right in a way that works for them, and we don't hear about them, and they're making art they love, but maybe it never makes it out of their basement. And there are stories, tons of stories like that.
Oh yeah. Speaking of Star Wars, you're working on your was it old Skywalker look there?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to not intentionally, but I think Mark Hamill and I are headed in that direction. He's getting paid more to do that as well, but whenever I see him on his new TV show, Pop Culture Quest, and now he's doing his Joker tweets for Trump, or he's reading Trump tweets as the Joker, which I think is great.
I've been loving them.
Yeah, I think it's great. I've got a lot of love for Mark Hamill. I haven't met him yet. I think I hope that's in the future. I'll keep my fingers crossed. I love that so many years later, since the original Star Wars, that Luke Skywalker was such an important person to so many young people, and Mark Hamill as well, that he's still, when I look at Facebook, like Mark Hamill's on the top 3 stories. So after so many other actors have come and gone and worked their way through the machine, I'm so happy that Mark is still around and Luke Skywalker is still around, and he's come back into the forefront, which I love, and I hope that once the new movie comes out, Episode 8, we'll see him on Jimmy Fallon and all the I would love to see Mark Hamill on the cover of Time magazine or the cover of Rolling Stone. I hope he gets back on top where he belongs.
Yeah, he's a good actor. He really is. I love, honestly, as much as I liked his movie and television, he's done some spot television work, I really like his voice acting the most, honestly. It's some of the best. He seems to be his most relaxed and emotive when doing it. So, it's... I can't wait to hear more,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, he's just so. I mean, he's so fun, and he loves his fans, and it's like he's never gotten too big to appreciate um, the connection with all the his grown up Star Wars babies. So I love that he's still just keeping it real, or whatever.
Yep, definitely.
So I got to see how much I'll keep at this.
All right, let's go back to the creative process real quick. I want to know how yours differs from everybody else's.
Wow. Well, that's a good question. I think, oh boy, that's a zinger. My creative process might in part be affected by my age, which is not to say that I'm have one foot in the grave. I don't. No. But the tragedy. So I was sort of like, I'm an 80s kid, and when I think of comics, I definitely think about comics in the newspaper and Garfield books and Calvin and Hobbes books, whereas, say, someone who's 10 years younger than me, or 15 years younger, might think of comics as being like on the internet. So there's an old story about this elephant, the baby elephant that gets tied to a tree by a rope, and it learns it can't break the rope. And when it gets older, even though it's a full-sized elephant, it can break the rope, but it's just stopped trying. So I feel a great sense of connection with newspaper comic strips and the sensibility of newspaper comic strips. The tone that they've adopted and they use, kind of the outer boundaries of the PG-13 humor, the amount of words, the kind of jokes. And I know that although the internet is sort of a free-for-all, you can type in every dirty word in the world, and there's 50,000 comic strips on the internet, and everyone's doing something different. So I would say that at heart, I still feel like I have a ongoing sensibility for the niceties of newspaper comics and the tone they strike. Was the question how my process is different, or?
Yeah, exactly. Your creative, because
Right.
like me, I just do a scene. I've got one piece of paper basically, and I do all my panels. Everything is on one piece.
Oh, yep. Okay. Well, I mean, I do draw things big and I cut them out like a collage, and I paste them together, and then I scan them and color them in Photoshop. So I used to early on draw like a regular strip where everything goes in one place, and here's the door, and here's the fire hydrant, da da da. But as the strip changed, I decided that I like to draw bigger, and if I screw something up, then it's not a problem because the elements are separate. So I end up, I draw Watson, I cut Watson out, and here's Watson. I draw Fudgy, and I cut him out, and I need a cookie jar, so here's the cookie jar, and I just move things all around like that. And if I screw something up, I screw up the cookie jar. I'm going to draw another one and stick it on there. So that's different. And as far as how I work, it's evolving. I definitely think that my taste in comics and my interest in what I'm doing is less fancy and less flashy. I sort of think of myself as a baked potato kind of cartoonist. I'm pretty simple, and
No sour cream, no chives.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes, yeah. I try to keep it a little pared down. Someone like my Obi-Wan Kenobi, Dan Ferraro, visually, who draws Bizarro. I mean, his strips are wild, and visually, he can do things that I'd say most cartoonists who have strips in the newspaper will never come close to approximating. And that's not to say that you have to. There's many strips that are more simple, comics in the New Yorker or newspaper strips, so like Family Circus or other strips that are just pared down, and they're funny and wonderful. So every cartoonist, every artist has his or her own approach. The look of Watson is still evolving, and what works about Watson is still evolving. But I count myself as a baked potato man.
I saw a picture on your Twitter account of coffee cups and what were those checkbooks? The little,
Yes, I think there's some.
yeah,
Right
yeah, I see the coffee cups, and I see some of the checkbooks behind you.
there. Yep. Ooh.
So
Yep.
that's part of your established process. I was reading about that on your Twitter there. You were talking about how that you go ahead and you get those ordered in. So that way it's part of your process. It's part of what you got to do to put
Yep.
yourself in the right frame of mind. The coffee is in your very particular cup, and you
Yep.
at least do the outlines on those little checkbooks.
I do. This is something that sort of evolved gradually, but I found that I used to be very wordy in the strip and just thought, well, I had no real rules, and just if it's funny, it works, and blah 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 blah. But I suppose after you produce enough art, and you can see the things that you like, and maybe the things that readers say they like, you can start to see patterns emerging, and then you can start to hone in on, the strips are better when they're wordy, or they're better when they're simple, or so on and so forth. And lately this is hot off the press, there might be a pattern between the number of words in the strip and how funny it is. I'm still working that out. I think I have I've hit upon something. But in brief, back to what you're asking, yeah, working this way allows me to do something that's familiar, and it usually produces good results. So the small pages on the restaurant pads reminds me that space is limited. People want to get there funny and go, so that that does remind me to think about space and timing too.
What size of paper do you use? Since you said you draw big, what size do you usually go with?
It's big. I would say the pad is around here somewhere. It's 24, or maybe it's I should really know these things. I feel badly. I think it's 11. I think it's 11 by 17.
Yeah, 11 by 17 is usually the average comic book page size.
How can we tell?
Buy a phone.
It's big. It's maybe it's bigger than two pieces of notebook paper. So hard to say. Yeah. It's big. I think it's 11 by 17, or maybe there's 17 by 24.
Yeah.
Yep. So
well, I've gone bigger myself. Speaking of big, not as big as yours, but still fairly good size. This is 11 by 15. It's watercolor paper because I've started watercolor my strips.
Wow.
Because I wanted to, I just don't like digital coloring. It's not that I'm against it. It's just, at least for my strip, it's not my cup of tea for my strip. So I've started watercoloring.
Yeah, I think you have to experiment. And I remember for a long time, I felt like I just want to figure out what works, and I want to be done. Like, I want to figure out, like, I use this pen, I use this paper, that's what works. I'm closing it out. I just need to get 100 of this and that, and I'm done. And I did that for a while, and then decided, well, maybe I'll try something else. And then I bought some toothy paper, and I learned that slowed the pen down, so it's sort of like as you're inking, you can kind of like, whoa, I'm curving now. Yeah. And that sort of opened a door, and new pens opened a different door. So I'd say, like all things, it can be fun to try something new, and if you've really hit upon something good, you'll keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
So, and that there's rules they're good as long as they work, but sometimes, there's little rule breakers that help also.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's not a terrible amount of rules in comics.
No.
At least,
and it's all just...
at least on the art side of things, On the word side of things, on the bubble side of things, yes, there's a couple of pretty hard rules there that you should follow. You should have good kerning. You should have some good spacing there so people can actually read it. Make certain you have a decent font size, several of my friends talked about their first couple of strips. They realized they just did the font too small, and it was all crammed together really terribly after you got it shifted from paper to digital. So,
Yeah.
there are a few rules, but that's about the only rules I know of.
I mean, I think that's absolutely true. I think what there's an old expression or wherever, maybe someone said it, that for every finished strip you have, there should be like 10 in the garbage. And I think one of the early things that when you're starting out, or anyone starting out with anything, you really got to get through those not so good early things so that you can get the bad stuff out so that the good stuff comes out. And a lot of that is experimenting. And there's a lot to be said for that. I was very, I guess the expression is, I was very precious early on about my work. Not Lord of the Rings, not that precious, but about wanting to not rock the boat too much and sort of like, okay, I got the character the way I like it, and don't try to do it from another angle because you might find out that you suck and you realize that you can't draw and you can't be a cartoonist after all. So just be like, I don't know, something like, don't look at the toaster because the toast will pop up. So, yeah. You do need to go through all the closets and just throw all the crap out and just figure stuff out. And if you have something that really works, hang on to it, but don't be afraid to try something else. And I'll be the first one to admit there are definitely things I need to work on visually that you don't see in the strip for similar reasons. I too have a few little things that I need to explore, or not. We'll see.
Like you said, you got to figure it out one way or another. And the best way to do it is to do it.
That's true.
All right.
So, yep.
Let's go back to newspaper comic strips for just a minute. What do you think
Yep.
they have that web comics don't, and vice versa?
Okay, if I get off topic, make sure to remind me what the hell I was talking about.
Okay.
Newspaper comic strips, more than just like having fun colors or beloved characters like Beetle, Bailey, and Hagar the Horrible, newspaper comic strips are the gatekeepers of the history of comics. What they have is continuity. And when people think about the history of comics, they're thinking about all the newspaper comics controlled by syndicates and how that first 100 years is in this nice new package. So what they have is a continuity and a family and a connection and kind of a bow around them. And that's what they have. And what the internet comics don't have is there's none of that. There's 40, 50,000 comic strips on the internet. There's no company that controls it all. You're probably never going to see a book of Volume 1, the best strips on the internet, because you'd have to get everyone to sign off, and how can you choose 200? You're still missing another 49,800. Maybe there's some good ones out there also, which there is. So I worry that as things transition, the history of comics will be lost because it's all just sort of like blasting out into space in a scattershot that's so big. No one can keep track of it. There's no company that's saying the history of comics is sort of focused in this direction. It's sort of like a puddle that's being watered down until there's nothing left. So what the newspaper comic strips have that the web doesn't have is they are the keepers of the history and the memory of comics. And as newspapers change and syndicates, as the model of comics starts to disintegrate, I worry that will be lost. So there's that. What does the internet have that webcomics, or what does the internet have that newspapers don't have? They have everything else. They have ultimate freedom. They have giant canvases. They have no rules, and they have it's super cheap. Anyone can make a webcomic and throw it up there, so it's a real renaissance. And I think it's opportunity, probably the number one thing, opportunity for people to do what they want and explore what they want. But again, there's so much out there. There's so much out there that there's sort of no edges to it. It's like comics
my
in outer
dog.
space.
Hold on. I'm sorry.
Right.
Dog, what are you doing?
Loki. I don't know what the nose dog is. I'm gonna have another sip
You
of my
have to
delicious beverage, which
interrupt
is
the podcast.
oh, it's
You
fine.
have to come say hi to the podcast.
I think this should be part of the podcast.
Come here.
This is my drink called a frog's belly, which I made
My
in my
little
special
fuzz
Watson bar.
beast.
Hello there, dog.
This is Ashes. And
Oh, hello,
she
Ashes.
does not like being put away for very long.
Well, who does?
Alright. Usually I go ahead and put them out, at least out in their kennel just for a little while I'm doing the podcast, but it is sleeting and snowing and nasty outside right now, so we're inside because it is warm and dry. And we won't smell like dead rat after I bring them back in.
No.
Be bad. So, chill out. Lay down. There you go.
Roll over.
Okay. All right. Doggy panic has settled. Sorry.
Cat.
Sorry, everybody.
Sorry, that was great. I love that.
Doggy moments. Yes. All right. I got the cat locked out. She's in the living room. She's probably sleeping.
Or eating lasagna.
Something like that. She might be in the kitchen. I mean, she's very finicky. She actually prefers jalapeno bagels.
Wow. I love that cat.
Yes, she's a very good cat. All right.
So internet is everywhere. Comic strips are in the newspaper. There's a couple hundred of them, and I worry just about the future of comics, how people will talk about it in 20 years, and
the historians I know of that I've come across comics-wise that have been doing some type of documentation of them actually don't like webcomics.
Yep, I agree. Because, that's not their...
Well, hardly any of them. They do not think that's the future of comics.
Well, that's... of course not. That's, everyone in the newspaper business has made their money and their career following those rules. And as soon as there are no rules, no one knows where their paycheck is coming from. So
yeah, it kind of frightens people. And, we're going through a very frightening time right now. Politically wise, our nation wise. So a lot of things are up in the air, but it's also a very exciting time. It can energize a lot of people. It can bring a lot of new change, and change is hard. Change is very hard.
I agree, but I think every industry since in the past 10 years, because of the internet and everything, I think music is funky, movies are funky, TV's funky, comics are funky, publishing is funky, reporting is funky. There's all these websites and blogs that are like newspapers. So I think technology has just caused a seismic shift in all fields, and everyone's worried about will the professionals still be professionals, and will the money still be coming from where we thought it was coming from? Whoa, and I think the answer is probably no one knows quite yet, and it's all sort of up in the air. A lot of things up in the air.
Very, very much so. But at the same time, that makes it exciting. It makes it new. It gives us more stretch and more grow, in many ways, and it can help. I don't want to be rude at the same time, but it's going to kill off some things that are no longer necessary.
We might not see as much blacksmithing as we have. I agree. I guess it depends where you are in the spectrum, whether you're if you're a web cartoonist. Yep. Okay, well, tell them get those websites going. Etsy for the future of blacksmithing.
Believe it or not, blacksmithing has been making a comeback.
I love that.
I do. It's an older form of manufacturing, and it's actually still needed because we still need custom made things.
Oh. Yeah, I saw something on the internet about how to make your own warrior armor. Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
It's not that hard to make chainmail.
I'm gonna, if I have questions.
Yes, so many questions. All right. Well, let's keep on going here.
Great.
Let's see here.
Mix it up.
All right. Okay, speaking of growing, all right. So, how do you think cartoonists, artists, people like that can grow in the right direction?
In the right
Hmm.
direction? Yowzer. Um, a couple ways. Watch me pull this out of my. You need to keep producing work. Number one. The more stuff you make, the better you'll get. The more you practice, the better you'll get. Um, you need to listen to yourself and sort of figure out what you like, but also be able to take a step back and be objective if possible, and find the balance between what you like, what you think is good, and sort of what else is working out there in the world. I think it really depends on what the artist's objective is. There's some people who think, like, if I do something I like, then that's it, and the hell with the world. If you're trying to create something that fits into a niche, if you love werewolf movies and you're making a werewolf movie and you want it to get out into the world and play in theaters, but your werewolves kill people by doing ballet on them, you might have a problem getting other people to like that. But if you're like, I'm going to be the king of ballet werewolf movies, then fine. But
Sundance.
if you're trying to, right, Sundance. If you're trying to make something that fits into a pre-existing genre, sometimes you need to see what are the rules for the industry in which you're trying to insert yourself. So, I think continue to produce work, know what you like, but also see what other people are doing. And also I'd say continue to feed your mind and put in other things like books and movies and comics and music, get inspiration from lots of places. And I'd say also know what's not working is also really important. It's good to see what other people have found success with and try to learn from their successes and absolutely talk to people. The best advice I've gotten from other people, which is really interesting, is always advice that points back at me. The best teachers I've always had have always been people that have held up a mirror to me rather than pointing out at the world. I think that's good advice, that all the best answers will probably come from you. You need to figure out what your voice is, what about what you're saying works, and I'd say advice that people have given me that does not work so well have been sort of like tone down X, Y, and Z. Try to weed that out and do more of this. And all the best advice has been do more of what you're about and figure out how to take you and turn you up, which has been helpful. And again, there's always ways to polish and fine tune the more of you position. So it's not to say just do more you and you'll be fine. You have to follow all those rules and continue to polish and weed through some of the stuff. But I'd say, just keep going and, figure out for the stuff that works, figure out why it works. If there's something that you really like, why do you like it? And what else, what other doors can that show you?
Very true. Very true. Let's go a little bit back in on that. What inspired Watson? What keeps inspiring you to make it?
Wow. Well, there's a lot of funny stories in there. I'll try to hit a couple. What inspired Watson literally was that while I was away on a trip, my wife bought a dog.
Ooh.
Who we named Watson.
So, honey, yeah, guess what? You have a new son. His name's Watson.
Yeah. We looked at dogs. We looked at Watson's brothers and sisters at a breeder near our house, and so I thought, we like this one. This guy looks good. Let's put a little X on his belly, which we did. And the breeder said, well, we have a lot of time. Then I went away on a little like a work trip, which was a couple states away. I drove to stay with a friend, and then she's like, hi, I bought the dog. And I'm like, oh, great. And at the time I was reading a book with a detective and thought that I've got an idea for a name. Oh. No one else knows that. Now you know.
Dun, dun,
so that's where his name came from. I like the idea of a character who's named after the person in the background. That it's like the musical group. Is it Garfunkel and Oates? That's on Netflix. I like the idea that the character in the background can be the main character if you just move that other guy aside. So that's where the name of that's where the dog came from. That's our dog. He's still great. He's a special little guy. The idea for the comic strip, literally, or the actual strip, came from my good friend Hillary Price, who draws Rhymes with Orange. I went to go visit her for the first time in 2007, and brought her my college strip, which I'd been working on for a while, and it ran in college, and Universal Press was interested in it, and they kind of passed, and I was still fiddling. And I said, "Oh, Hillary, what do you think of this?" She's like, "Well, the drawing is good, but the jokes are just too weird. I think you better move on." And I was like, "Oh, no." And she's like, "So what else are you going to try?" And my little voice is like, "Say something about a comic strip about a dog." I said, "Oh, you know what? That's funny you say that, because I don't need my college strip, because I'm starting something new, and it's a comic strip about a dog." It was all total bullshit. We had this as we were leaving her studio and going down the stairs, and she said, "What are you doing?" And the little voice, "Comic strip about a dog." And I'm doing a comic strip about a dog, and that's where it came from. And then I went home and I started to doodle it, and as I've said in several places, although I started putting Watson online in 2010, there are 3 years of Watson comics that no one has ever seen. And I'm not saying that's not 365 times 3. It's not like 900 strips. There's over 100, and they're not as
not as polished.
Well, they're polished in a different way. Definitely more polished than some of the strips in 2011. So, but so Watson's been. I mean, if you want to include the whole thing, then I'd say Watson, the comic strip's been around for 10 years. But if you want to talk about the internet, then only 7. So where did this strip come from? It came from lies. Lies!
It came from an elevator pitch.
Yeah. Incidentally, I also told her a couple of years later I was also working on other strips as well. I told her I was doing a strip about vegetarian animals in a zoo and some other things. But the comic Watson is always Watson's the one that made it through.
Very nice. Have there been any missteps with Watson, or with your art in general?
Oh, of course. Oh yeah, I mean, earlier at the beginning of 2016, I did a comic strip where I fudgy cut off Watson's ear with the scissors, and it's on the internet. I think it's like you can look at it. It's 2016. It's in the Watson archives. It's in March. I thought that was going to be very funny. I thought it was sort of like a Wile E. Coyote. He's giving Watson a haircut, and Watson's like, "What was that sound?" And there's like a big Watson ear, like a big hunk of liver on the counter, and there's like a little bloody stump. And I thought people would think it was funny, like Wile E. Coyote, or I got so many emails that day. It was my wife called me. She's like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" So I was like, "Yeah, oh no." So then I had to put Watson's ear back on in the next strip. Calvin's mom, he goes into Calvin and Hobbes' world, and Calvin's mom stitches him up, and the next day he's like, "Oh, it was all a dream." It was a dream. So that was a comic strip misstep. People tell me that readers told me that they love Watson, and killing him is not the same as killing Wile E. Coyote, because Wile E. Coyote is like a jerk.
Well, he's definitely a bit of a villain, and Watson is not. Yeah.
Watson's huggable. So there's that. That was a isolated misstep. As far as drawing missteps, I think one of my many life philosophies is like, I don't care how long it takes me to get there, just as long as I get there. And there are, I mean, the milk card section of Watson strips, which I think was in like 2012, where there's gags on milk cards from Fudgy's school, the Good Haven Elementary. That was definitely good practice at coming up with jokes that were not Watson based. There's some about like Babar and Calvin being drunk, and Moby Dick Tracy, the crime-stopping whale. And those things make me laugh, and I definitely had fun writing them. And at that point, I wasn't sure, like, could Watson just be a strip that's just about, like, whatever, it's just about gags. And people did seem to like those.
I think you need more Moby.
And
I like Moby.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the
Yeah,
the,
I
the
like the
whale,
whale.
not
No.
not the DJ. Yeah, there was one that people like Manatee Death Squad, and it's like a bunch of manatees just in a big heap, and it says Manatee Death Squad. You're probably safe
Yeah,
because they don't
yeah.
really move so well.
They
So
they
yeah, those
are
are
the
funny.
Brit Squad.
They are. But in the end, I ended up curving back to um Watson and Fudgy, which seems to be the case now. So um. Was that 6 months with the milk cards or the gag strips? Was it a waste of time? Not necessarily, because it helped me realize kind of where I wanted to come back to, and there may be iterations of what I learned there down the road. I don't know. Today's strip was really weird and was sort of isolated and strange. So I don't know. I think as long as no matter what you do, even if there are missteps, as long as you can use it in some way, that's fine. As long as like no one dies, or you don't kill Watson off, or I don't know.
Not another ear misstep.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes missteps are really
True.
funny. I mean, I do things that I think are really stupid, and then people think that they're very funny. So it's
Sometimes,
it's an
yeah,
ongoing battle.
comedy is kind of hard because you never know what's going to tickle some people and offend others. And
Yeah, and
I specifically go out. Mine are pretty mild. Honestly, mine are more puns, more gags, that sort of thing. But mine have definitely hit a couple people, and I've gotten some
yep.
negative back about it, and I just shrug it off because everybody else liked it except a couple, and okay.
Yes, I had a reader, and I won't name names, who disliked the strip so much a few years ago. I sent this reader a little note on Facebook, and I got a note back, and it went back and forth, and got very heavy, and I ended up making a donation in the name of this person for a charity, as a kind of penance, and let them know that I had done that. Clearly, I wasn't obligated, and if you think about all the readers who send nasty letters to, all those other cartoonists, I mean, I'm sure Dan Praro gets nasty emails. I'm sure Stefan Pastis gets nasty emails, and some people are like, "F you, man," whatever, So I've learned my lesson. I'm not making any donations as of late, but people do get
Oh, my favorite have
upset.
been so far the what was it? The commie liberal neo was it neo feminist neo Nazi feminist. Uh,
That sounds like something
yeah,
you'd order at
basically, I
Starbucks.
was like, most of those contradict each other to begin with, so that really wouldn't happen in the same even sentence. But okay, happy for you,
We need more comics like that. We
right?
need more
Right.
comics like that. Keep it up.
I'm just like,
It's what Mark Hamill would want.
pretty much. I just sit here and I don't get a whole lot of hate, at least not yet, except being female on the internet. I usually get some lovely misogyny. Uh, always fun.
There's more women in the U.S. than there are men.
hmm
That's insane.
I'm sitting here going, more than 50% of us are here, and if we decided to actually revolt,
Yep. Tell that guy, be glad you have a mother.
pretty
Otherwise, you
much,
wouldn't be here.
pretty much. So,
Oh, well.
eh,
Lost to the dark side
yes,
is he.
yes.
Yes.
Lost to the stupid side is he. Uneducation.
Mm.
Yes.
Episode 1 and a third. I don't know.
All right.
So
What do you think? Since let's keep the ball rolling for a little while longer here. What do you think? Younger people that are coming up wanting to start making comics and making art, whatnot, don't get about getting into this field.
Well, oh, I heard a mysterious noise. It was the little fireplace. About comic
About
strips,
comics, about art in general. What do you think they're not getting?
right? Wow, it takes a long time. Oh, here it is. I just thought of this. This is great. That whatever you're getting into, get into it because you like that thing. Um, to get good at anything takes a long time, and it takes a lot of practice. And most of your life, there's only so many award shows. There's only so many things you can do. And if you're doing anything to get rich and get famous, but you're not terribly interested in the work, then you probably won't get too far and you won't be motivated to get better because you're just like, how much longer do I have to do this before I can get a Ferrari or what have you? That's the wrong reason to do it. You have to like doing it because, number one, you're going to have to spend thousands of hours working on it to get good. And there are people that are motivated to work on things for thousands of hours just to get rich and famous and have big houses, and God bless them. But if you're moving forward and you're like, I just can't wait to stop this so I can get rich, you probably won't have that same level of interest in it, and the work might be kind of hollow. And, once you get the money, they're like, oh, it's sort of like, feels like a train they're waiting to get off. Like, I just want to keep on doing this until I can get to the rich and famous station so I can finally get off. Oh, thank God I'm here. Because you got to spend a lot of hours making
Right.
that stuff. So I would say get into it because you like it. Get into it because it interests you. Get into it because you like doing it, you're intrigued by the idea of getting better. Something that I thought about recently was the fact that there is so much technology and it's so easy for people to try something, get in, fiddle around, and get out. I worry that more younger people won't stick it out to get good at things. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as the internet. I mean, when I was a real little kid, and when being a cartoonist is something that you had to aspire to. It's like I've got to keep drawing for 20 years until I'm good enough to get into a newspaper, or I've got to pay my dues before I can become a Hollywood director. But now it's so easy to do these things. Someone's like, I'm going to draw a comic strip, I'll put it on the internet. It was kind of boring. I didn't get too many likes, so I stopped. I'm not going to be a cartoonist anymore. And I made a little movie with my iPhone, and that's stupid. Now I don't want to be a director. And it's sort of like, because people can do stuff so quickly, get their fill and get out, they're cycling through all these interests that could be lifetime passions. If only there was this sense of dedication where you've got to stick it out for a long time before you get there, versus I tried it, I had an experience, now I'm done. So one of the things about technology that's strange is that everyone can become all of their lifetime fantasy dreams before they're 15. It's like, I had a band, I got to be Mick Jagger when I was 9. I drew a webcomic for 6 months on Facebook, I got to be a cartoonist. I made a movie on my phone, and I got to be J.J. Abrams, and now I don't want to be anything because I did it all. Versus you've got to do that for 20 years and get really good, and then talk to me once you're 25. It's like, no one will want to do anything anymore because they can have all those experiences when they're 10. So, what the hell? So my advice is, figure out what you like, what brings you joy, and do it for a long time. And it's going to be hard, but working through it and getting to those little plateaus, hey, I got better, that's really rewarding. And if you stick it out, you'll like where you get.
Very true. I see that dedication, but yes, it's in fewer younger people than it is more in an older generation. Well, do you mind if I ask what age you are, just to get some context?
Do you want to, how about a range? Don't let the grade fool you.
40.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty close. 40, let's see, I'm 41.
You were,
But if I shaved
you're
my beard and dyed my hair, you'd say 30.
you're only 4 years older than me.
Oh, okay. That means I can take your milk money.
Not really.
No, I'm just
You
kidding.
will have to pry the jug from my cold dead hands. I
Keep it.
like my milk. Yes. But, well, younger generations are also just coming up into things. They're having to deal with a balance of technology versus manual actual work, hands-on work.
Yeah.
And more of them have had technology earlier. I started actually using computers when I was in third grade. I'm highly dyslexic. Actually, I have severe dyslexia. And my school was one of the first pilot schools in the States that had computers to help kids with reading disorders. And so I started using them in the third grade, and I thought they were fantastic. I completely got into them. I got into DOS. I learned how to hack the school's computer by fourth grade because I was a nerd. But, that's because it sparked my interest, and so I got into it right away. Not everybody has that exposure to at least even good education anymore. It really scares the living shit out of me how little even public education is giving our kids now. My nieces and nephews, for instance, they would bring their school books over, maybe once in a while I'd have to pick them up from school. I'd help them with their homework, whatever. And I got to take a look at what they're learning, and I'm like, you should have learned this way earlier. Why are you learning this in sixth grade? You should have learned this at least in fourth, They've stretched a lot of it out. They've put in a lot of filler, is the easiest way I can put it. And they're just testing the living shit out of them without actually teaching them anything. And, taking away shop classes, taking away art classes, taking away the music classes, and pretty much leaving either only sports or going to school at a lot of these public schools leaves nobody any room for growth.
Well, I had so much fun in art class and shop class and baking class and sewing class, and those were really good. So I hope they come back.
They should have. I don't see why they cut them. They kept saying, well, this is just taxing our school budget. Where was it taxing it? And
it wasn't me.
Most of the time, it's actually the sports programs that have been taxing their budgets. If you go through any of these schools, and that's because they want fancier uniforms and better equipment for their sports teams. Well, then maybe you need to go raise some more money for your sports team specifically and quit trying to take it away from the other classes altogether.
Bring back art class. More paste eating. That's what I say.
Paste. But, so I try to supplement any of the kids that I am around. I've got history-friendly kids' books that teach them a wide variety of history. I usually try to give those when I've got the money to nieces, nephews, and friends' kids. And then I also give them projects, actual hands-on projects. You got to make this. If you want that item, you have to build it. Here's the kit. And
yes, it's not like making art. You got to figure out what works.
Glue themselves to it a couple of times, solvent.
But don't cut off anyone's ear, because you'll hear from your readers.
But, I think a lot more hands-on is just needed.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I'm not downing people that want to use technology to explore some hobbies, and figure out what they want, but they do need to really study the hobby and put some actual dedication into it. Yeah,
or just stick it out. Yeah, and enjoy the process of doing something that's just fun because it's fun, not because there's money at the end. Or I think people that are involved in fields that are less big, like out in the world, like you don't hear a lot about like the shoe cobbling awards or the watch repair awards. So people that get into those things, like I like it because it's fun, not because I want to be oh, I don't know, the Puff Daddy of
Right.
shoemaking. It's like I do it because I like it.
Exactly.
It's funny. I don't know.
And if you're really good at it and you show people, a lot of times that will make you the Puff Daddy. But
You will be the Puff
be
Daddy
the
shoe
Puff
repair.
Daddy, but it's only if you make stuff and you don't aim for the Puff Daddy.
I somewhere out there there is like a shoe cobbler awards. There's people there, and the guy walks like, "Oh my God, it's Bernard Saint Germain, the Puff Daddy of cobbling," and he's like, "Please, please, I'm not going to sign anyone's shoes now." Someone with a really funny name. It's Christopher Michael James McIntyre, the watch repair man of the watch repair god of Latin America. See if he'll sign your screwdriver. No, please.
No
Questions. You remember that thing you did with the spring when you fixed the second hand? No. I won't talk about it here. Read my new book. It's called Winding Back Time. I don't know, whatever.
And that bit with wow. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and kind of wrap it up here? Well, we'll wrap it up with, why don't you tell us about the philosophy of Watson, and let's just kind of end it on a Zen moment.
The philosophy of Watson. I'm not sure if that's Watson the dog or the strip itself. I don't know. I'd say that we're passing through the universe during this tiny little blip, and God damn it, I don't know what the philosophy of Watson is. I think it's that we all have to appreciate the interconnectedness of each other to one another, and that we all have to be nicer to each other, and everyone's sort of on their own little journey, and I don't know. Let's not cut each other's ears off, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. Let's all just try to get along and work out our differences and be nice to each other and listen to each other and try to find a common ground.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you so much for coming along here. I'm gonna do just a quick little update on a news story I covered last month on last podcast. So guys, there's been a little bit of an update. You guys remember us covering about the Chelsea Kane story, her having to leave Twitter because of online harassment and sexual harassment. Well, we've had another creator, Jordi Bellar. She had to go ahead and leave Twitter as well because of the same reasoning. And more comics people are stepping up and saying, no, this is wrong. And the update to the story is the creators of Southern Bastards, Jason Latour and Jason Aaron, are responding with a variant cover, and all proceeds raised from that will be split between the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ACLU to help fight harassment. I think this is fantastic. I'll put links down in the doobly-doo for everybody that wants to look it up. But they're quoted as saying, in response to the recent trend towards online harassment, Jason Latour and Jason Aaron's Southern Bastards, issue number 16, which will be out here in just a couple of days as of the recording of this podcast, so it'll be out here mid-January, will feature a special variant cover to benefit charity. This special Don't Be a Bastard charity variant cover, showcasing Southern Bastards protagonist Roberta Tubb, interpreted by some of comics' brightest artistic talents. This is not the first time Latour and Aaron have announced a variant to benefit charity. The last one they did was issue number 10. They did a charity variant cover and raised $18,000 for the victims of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. So this'll be a fantastic thing for everybody to jump in and at least just grab a copy just for charity, guys. You know, me, I have not read the Southern Bastards one. I've kind of put it on the back burner because I was going to read it later when I could get some trades of it. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find me a copy of the variant cover just to go ahead and at least be donating to a good cause. Because online harassment is bullshit. It is pure bullshit. You know, people can have an opinion. They are welcome to it, but that does not mean it should evolve into harassment. You cannot like something people are doing. You can say, no, no thank you. I don't like your strip, or I don't like your writing, or I don't like your art. Welcome to it. Thank you for your opinion. When you turn around and you start telling people they need to go die, that you're going to track them down and kill them, or hurt their family and friends, that's when you're overstepping a line, and that's when law enforcement will actually get involved. So, watch yourselves, guys. But I'm definitely buying this variant cover myself later in the month here. Alright, well thank you so much, Jim, for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and it's great to be back, and thanks for being a great Watsoneer, which you are.
Well, I share it when I find it. It's fun.
Thank you.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, guys. You can check him out on Facebook under Watson Strip, or Comics, Watson Comics. And you could also check him out on his website, watsonstrip.com.
And can I make a wee plug? Hang on. I had something to say. Oh, I can't even find it. Diehard Watsoneers will know that there is a special Watson brand coffee that is made by the Just Coffee Company in Madison, Wisconsin. The Watson package is undergoing a update, and there will be a interesting update to the Watson coffee package coming in just a few weeks. So if you can, it's the name of the coffee is Watson's Cozy Cup Magic, which if you Google, it will take you right to the spot where you can buy it online, and then look for the new bag coming in just a few weeks.
If they make a tea, I will gladly get it. I can't drink coffee.
I can look into that.
But nonetheless, it's still awesome. Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me again. I appreciate it. This has been The Trade, episode 49, guys. Thank you. And please like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the podcast, what we can do to improve it. Anybody else you'd like us to have on, you know, I'm always open for suggestions. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. Real easy. Just put in The Trade, or you can put in my name, Melanie Chitwood. All right. I'll talk to you later, guys. See you next month.